$166 billion. Collected illegally, from you, collected by your very own government. The Supreme Court just ruled that every tariff dollar collected under Donald Trump's emergency trade powers was unconstitutional. That's $166 billion from over 330,000 American businesses across 53 million shipments. It was illegal, never should have happened. But here's the part they're burying in the fine print. You probably paid for it. Higher grocery bills, higher electronics, higher clothing prices all year long. And when the government cuts the refund checks, you won't see a single cent. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's exactly what the US government said in its own filings. And that's what we're unpacking today. Every dollar, every decision, every name, and every question nobody in Washington wants to answer. Stay right there. On February 20th, 2026, the Supreme Court issued one of the most consequential rulings in history. By a vote of 6-3, they declared Trump's signature tariff program flatly illegal. Not unconstitutional in some abstract sense. Illegal under the specific law Trump used to justify them. Illegal in a way that means the federal government owes back every dollar it collected, every penny with interest. The number is $166 billion. That's the official estimate for what Customs collected. Collected between April 2025 and February 2026. The 10 months the IEEPA tariffs were in force. $166 billion extracted from the American economy through a legal authority that, according to 6 justices, the president was never authorized to use. Here's what that actually means. The government taxed the American private sector $166 billion, using a legal theory that its own Supreme Court, a court stacked with conservative justices, said was wrong. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, was unusually blunt. He noted that the word tariff does not appear anywhere in the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Not once. The word tax doesn't appear either. The word duty, gone. And yet the Trump administration argued that 2 words, regulate importation, gave a single president unilateral authority to tax every product entering the United States at any rate, for any duration, with no congressional approval required. Roberts called that an assertion of power that would give the president the unilateral authority to impose unbounded tariffs. 6 justices said no. And here is the paradox that will define the next 6 months of American economic life. The businesses that imported those goods, the ones that paid the tariffs directly, are now eligible for refunds. $166 billion flowing back from the government to the importers. But the millions of ordinary Americans who ultimately paid for those tariffs through higher prices, they get nothing. Legally, officially, provably nothing. It is the most quietly outrageous fact in a story full of outrageous facts. Let's put that number in proper scale, because $166 billion is a figure large enough to lose its meaning. The Tax Foundation, one of the most credible economic organizations in Washington, estimated this was the largest tax increase since 1993. Not since Bill Clinton's first term has a tax regime hit the American private sector this hard. The same tax foundation calculated that the average American household paid an extra $1,000 in higher prices in 2025. Across a country of roughly 130 million households, you do the math, the money came from somewhere. Across a country of roughly 130 million households, you do the math, the money came from somewhere. It came from everywhere. It came from the grocery store. It came from the toy aisle. It came from the small business owner in Ohio buying components for a product she was trying to manufacture. It came from the wine importer in New York named VOS Selections, 5 small businesses facing potential bankruptcy. Now, let's talk about what the government actually did wrong, because this story has 3 distinct violations. And still, the people who actually paid the higher prices at checkout are on the outside looking in. And still, the people who actually paid the higher prices at checkout are on the outside looking in. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act was passed in 1977 to govern how presidents could respond to genuine foreign crises. The first violation was the constitutional one. Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution gives Congress, not the president, Congress, the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts. That historical silence was itself evidence. Roberts said so explicitly. It was telling that IEEPA had never been used this way before. That was a deliberate design choice. The people who wrote the Constitution had just fought a war over taxation without representation. They were not going to hand one executive the unlimited power to tax American commerce by declaring an emergency. The second violation was the scope. Even if you think the words regulate importation could theoretically include some tariff authority. Freeze assets, block financial transactions, regulate the flow of money. From its passage in 1977 until 2025, no president, Democrat or Republican, had ever used it to impose tariffs. Not once in 48 years. Brazil, a country with which the United States runs a trade surplus, faced 50% tariffs. What Trump imposed was nothing like that. The tariffs applied to nearly all goods from nearly all countries. Rates went as high as 145% on Chinese imports. Vietnam faced 46%, Cambodia 49%, Thailand 36%. Roberts said the administration was claiming authority that is extraordinary. In Supreme Court jurisprudence, that word is a signal. The emergency that justified these tariffs, trade deficits and drug trafficking, was a legal fig leaf stretched over a sweeping economic restructuring. The third violation is the one that will haunt ordinary Americans for years. When businesses paid these tariffs, most of them did what businesses do. They passed the cost to consumers. That's not a bug. That's how tariffs work. The importer pays the duty. The importer raises prices. The consumer absorbs the hit. That chain is well established. Now, let's talk about the person saying the most alarming things on this story. And it is not who you would expect. Alan Wolf is a former senior fellow at the Peterson Institute and was a staffer in the U.S. Treasury Department during the Nixon administration. He helped write Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, the law Trump used as his replacement tariff vehicle. Within hours of the ruling, Trump issued an executive order. He then increased it to 15% the next day on Truth Social. When CNN asked Wolf if conditions justified this, he said, "Today, there is no crisis. If there were, financial markets would be in deep free fall." Section 122 was designed for a crisis like 1971, when the United States was literally running out of gold reserves. Nixon had to act. Not for the circumstances of 2026, where the U.S. trades in the world's reserve currency and runs a massive services surplus. Here's why that matters immediately. Section 122 tariffs expire after 150 days. The clock is already running. They come off on July 24th. The Wall Street Journal reports the administration is already preparing investigations into batteries, iron fittings, and plastic piping. If you are a small business owner like Sarah Wells trying to plan your fall inventory right now, you have no idea what you'll be paying. She told Marketplace Radio, "I have no way of knowing what my pricing should be for fall and Christmas 2026. She needs to decide right now. That decision is being made in a fog of legal uncertainty that this administration created. Jennifer Hillman, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, has been doing some of the most rigorous work on this. Her conclusion is sobering. The Supreme Court's decision has limited reach because it rested on a narrow statutory interpretation. The court ruled on one tool. The president still has a workshop full of other tools. And here is the hidden economic weapon. The government owes money to 330,000 importers. NPR called CAPE America's hottest website the day it opened. The government owes money to 330,000 importers. NPR called CAPE America's hottest website the day it opened. In the first 72 hours, the portal experienced congestion, duplicate tax ID errors, and widespread rejection cascades. The National Law Review has reported that the outstanding balance is accruing interest at the rate of $650 million per month. That is $22 million every single day in interest alone, taxpayer money, accumulating while the system scrambles. CBP had no system to deposit money directly when the portal launched. They had to build one in 2 months, and refunds are not automatic. Phase 1 covers roughly 82% of eligible claims, about $127 billion. The rest must wait for Phase 2. The government's appeal risk is real. The administration has 43 days to appeal Judge Eaton's refund order. A successful stay could halt refunds mid-process for businesses that haven't had their claims accepted before June 7th. What does this mean for the American consumer? The money flowing back is going to importers and customs brokers. Whether any of that flows to you is a question of corporate strategy and class action litigation, not law. Costco and FedEx face class action lawsuits. Consumers argue that pocketing the full refund on top of higher prices is a duplicate benefit. Lululemon, UPS, and the eyewear giant behind Ray-Ban are also now named in class action filings. Those cases will take years. Legally, officially, provably nothing. It is the most quietly outrageous fact in a story full of outrageous facts. This is the honest summary. It stops the illegal collection, refunds the businesses, and delivers no direct relief to you. While the refund is underway, the Trump administration is not retreating. It is regrouping and reloading. On April 2, 2026, the administration imposed new Section 232 tariffs on steel, aluminum, and pharmaceuticals. These investigations target large-scale batteries, iron fittings, and plastic piping, critical sectors of the modern economy. The Wall Street Journal reports the administration is actively preparing Section 232 investigations into batteries and telecommunications equipment. These investigations target large-scale batteries, iron fittings, and plastic piping, critical sectors of the modern economy. Separately, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative has initiated accelerated Section 301 investigations into more than 60 trading partners. This covers trading partners across Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America simultaneously. Public hearings began on May 5, 2026. Section 301 tariffs, once finalized, carry no automatic expiration date. Inu Manak of the CFR put it plainly. This decision is likely to be a temporary break in the president's ongoing trade wars. She was right. The break lasted less than 24 hours. The trade war is not over. It has just changed weapons. 24 Democratic-led states have filed a lawsuit challenging the Section 122 tariffs. They argue that the balance of payments conditions required by the law simply do not exist in the 2026 economy. Legal scholars like Ilya Somin argue that if these challenges succeed, we could be looking at a second round of refund litigation, a second Cape portal, a second $100 billion scramble. And once again, the bill for being wrong is measured in consumer dollars. Here is what you should be watching over the next 30 to 45 days, because this story is not static. Watch the Section 122 clock. Those tariffs expire July 24th. What happens in the 30 days before that is the critical signal. Replacement tariffs mean the trade war continues. No replacement means either a deal or a strategic retreat. Either way, prices will move. Watch the Cape portal appeal deadline. The government has until approximately June 7th to appeal and potentially seek a stay. If that stay is granted, $166 billion in refunds freezes mid-process. Businesses would be left in legal limbo. Watch the Section 301 hearing schedule. Public hearings began May 5, 2026. The results will determine the trade landscape. The results determine the trade landscape by summer and fall. If targeting a late summer announcement, the signals come from those hearings. Watch the class action litigation. The lawsuits over whether businesses pocket the refund or pass it back to you are in early stages. A ruling or settlement in any of those cases would set a precedent for how the remaining $166 billion flows back toward you. Watch Treasury yield movements. This is the one most people won't be tracking. It connects the trade court to your mortgage. If trade uncertainty declines, expect bond market relief, downward pressure on mortgage rates. That's a direct wallet issue for you. So here is where we stand. What is resolved and what is not. What is resolved is that IEEPA does not authorize tariffs. On February 20, 2026, the Supreme Court issued one of the most consequential rulings in history. What is not resolved, whether refunds reach businesses before the government delays. Whether you see any benefit at all. Whether small businesses like Melcon Khosrovian, tracking different tariff rates on vanilla and nutmeg, will survive the nightmare. In Scenario 1, the administration finalizes trade deals, stabilizes prices, and builds a predictable framework by late 2026. In Scenario 2, new challenges begin a second refund scramble. The American economy enters 2027 with contested tariffs. The Supreme Court made the right call on February 20th. They applied the Constitution honestly. That matters. In a democracy, functional safeguards against concentrated executive power are exactly what the founders intended. The court did its job. But the most uncomfortable truth is this: the $166 billion taken illegally is going back to businesses, not to you. The 100 million Americans who paid the price will receive exactly $0 in return. The system worked exactly as advertised. Stay informed, stay precise, stay skeptical. That's what we do here on the American Pulse. We'll see you in the next one. 166 billion, 330,000 businesses, 53 million shipments, one court ruling, and $0 for you. The American Pulse. Facts first. Always. 166 billion, 330,000 businesses, 53 million shipments, one court ruling, and $0 for you. The American Pulse. Facts first. Always.